When we think about e-commerce, our minds naturally drift to that cardboard package waiting on our doorstep, right? We think of the familiar brands, the big retail platforms, the whole consumer-facing world. But beneath the surface of the internet we use every single day, there is this massive, invisible iceberg of commerce, and the scale of it is just staggering. It's projected to hit $47.54 trillion globally by 2030. I mean, to put that into perspective, that is more than the GDP of the US and China combined. This is the business-to-business, or B2B e-commerce market. It literally dwarfs the consumer market we're so used to, and it is the quiet, humming engine that actually keeps our entire world running.
Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we are going on a really fascinating journey right under the hood of the global economy. We're going to pull back the curtain on this invisible supply chain to see exactly how businesses buy and sell at a truly massive scale. It's this incredible world of complex networks, hidden marketplaces, and literally trillions of dollars moving in the background, all just to ensure that the products you rely on are sitting right there on the shelves when you need them.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the sheer scale of the invisible trillion-dollar market. Second, we'll unpack the actual micromechanics of procurement and supply chains. Third, we'll explore the 4 B2B marketplaces. Fourth, we'll peek into the invite-only world of private B2B networks. And finally, we'll spot the massive trends shaping collaborative commerce.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the invisible trillion-dollar market.
So, to truly grasp the scale we're dealing with here, consider this. By 2026, B2B e-commerce is expected to account for over 55% of all inter-firm trade in the United States. Think about that. Over half the value exchanged between companies will be entirely digitally enabled. But, this digital nervous system of modern business, it didn't just happen overnight. The evolution of B2B systems has been this steady 50-year march. Back in the 1970s, it started with basic automated order entry systems. Then the 1980s brought electronic data interchange, or EDI. The 90s gave birth to actual digital storefronts, and then the 2000s just exploded into the dynamic cloud, mobile, and social platforms we see today.
Now, what's really fascinating about this evolution is how these technologies don't just replace each other. They actually layer and overlap. For example, a technology like electronic data interchange, it stretches all the way from the 80s right into the present day. And that's because EDI is still an absolute workhorse of B2B commerce. The newer technologies like your mobile apps or cloud software, they don't necessarily kill off the older systems. They build upon them to create a really rich, highly complex digital ecosystem.
Moving right along to Section 2, unpacking procurement and supply chains.
Now that we understand the macro scale of all this, let's ask a pretty basic question. How does a multinational corporation actually go about buying the 10,000 tons of raw steel it needs for manufacturing? Well, that highly deliberate process lives within the supply chain. We define a supply chain as a complex system of organizations, people, business processes, technology, and information, all linked together to efficiently produce products. And modern supply chains, they are multi-tier. It's a vast global web that requires absolutely incredible coordination.
And within that giant supply chain, the actual buying happens through the procurement process. And let me tell you, it is incredibly information intensive. First off, businesses have to search for suppliers. Second, they have to qualify those sellers. Third, they negotiate the prices and terms. Fourth, they issue formal purchase orders. Fifth, the goods are finally shipped. And sixth, you have invoicing and settlement. Every single one of these steps generates a massive, towering trail of data across the systems of the buyer, the seller, and the shipper.
But here's the crucial point. Businesses aren't just buying one type of thing. On one hand, we have direct goods. These are the raw materials directly involved in production, like, say, steel for an automaker. On the other hand, we have indirect goods, often called MRO, which stands for maintenance, repair, and operations. These are your everyday supplies. Think computers, desk chairs, or even janitorial equipment. So why does this matter? Well, because how a business actually goes about buying depends entirely on which of these two categories they are shopping for.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, the 4 B2B marketplaces.
Because businesses buy in these very distinct ways, highly specialized digital arenas have evolved to handle the transactions. You can actually organize them into a neat little matrix based on what businesses buy, indirect versus direct goods, and how they buy them. Doing a quick spot purchase for indirect goods, you're going to use an e-distributor like Amazon Business. Spot purchasing for direct goods, you head to an independent exchange. Setting up a long-term sourcing contract for indirect goods uses e-procurement platforms, while long-term sourcing of direct goods happens via industry consortia. It is a brilliant system that perfectly organizes the chaos of global trade. Let's actually do a deep dive into just one of those areas, e-procurement marketplaces, like Ariba, for instance. Notice how they sit perfectly right in the middle of the whole process. On one side, you have multiple supplier catalogs. On the other side, the buyer firms. The e-procurement marketplace acts as this vital intermediary. It provides value-added services that basically automate a firm's entire purchasing process, from the initial requisition all the way to invoicing. It totally streamlines the connection between hundreds of suppliers and buyers.
All right, shifting gears to Section 4, powering private B2B networks.
So, up to this point, we've talked mostly about public marketplaces. But honestly, the absolute heavyweights of the B2B world operate in invite-only, highly secure private networks. Take a look at how a dominant firm like Procter & Gamble uses one. P&G sits right at the center, and they seamlessly connect backward to their raw material suppliers and forward to their distributors and retailers. So when you buy P&G shampoo at your local store, that point-of-sale data instantly travels back through this private network, signaling suppliers to adjust their production. It creates this unbelievable visibility, and it is the exact reason your favorite brands manage to stay on the shelves.
And finally, Section 5, trends in collaborative commerce.
As these private networks really mature, we are starting to zoom out and look at a whole new era, one defined by deep strategic partnerships. Because transacting is really just one piece of the collaborative commerce puzzle. True collaborative commerce means using digital tech to interlock product design, marketing coordination, demand chain visibility, and industry-wide resource planning. It's like a giant puzzle where a manufacturer, a designer, and a logistics firm are all looking at the exact same real-time data in the cloud, working together to bring a product from a mere concept right into the consumer's hands.
So what's powering this collaborative future? Well, a few major trends are hitting right now. Just-in-time and lean production strategies are totally eliminating excess inventory and waste. Blockchain is being heavily deployed, like Walmart tracing food origins with absolute, undeniable certainty. There is also a massive growing demand for accountable, sustainable supply chains that actually protect the environment and labor standards. And all of this, the whole shebang, is increasingly hosted on cloud-based platforms, making it easier and cheaper for firms to connect than ever before.
Which really brings us to our final thought for today. The COVID-19 pandemic gave us all a pretty stark reminder of just how fragile these massive global networks can be when they're disrupted. As we've seen today, B2B e-commerce is the literal central nervous system of our economy. So, in the face of the next major disruption, the next black swan event, how resilient is the invisible supply chain behind the brands you rely on every single day? It's a massive question, and it's one every business leader is frantically trying to answer right now. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep looking beneath the surface.